textures on the Nexus, and this is in my look at. But I know not everyone is as big of a sucker for flashy appearances as I am. So let's talk about actual content changes. And institutions in the world now, you would expect it to be a bit more, well, populated and lively. All we get is a recently inhabited castle with like 7 to maybe 10 characters throughout the storyline living there. Well, allow me to introduce you to the Lord Fort Dogguard by Yavi, a mod that completely overhauls the fortress to make it feel more alive and appropriate for what it should be. A number of new changes are introduced. Numerous new structures appear surrounding the fort on the outside, including additional guard towers, minor walled stockades for added defense, a tiny sparring pit for practicing fighters, and even a stable with horses. Inside the building itself, a new armory room has been introduced to the east wing, as well as a small interrogation room, where captured vampires are being held and questioned. Around 17 new NPCs will also appear, populating the new additions and making the place feel humming with activity. Some of these characters are more generic guards, but others behave as named merchants, trainers, followers, and a few even. So now, their headquarters will better reflect that. Next up, and lastly for the Dawnguard specifically, let's talk equipment. Specifically, the faction's weapon choices. In the DLC itself, the Dawnguard are only given 2 unique melee weapons. Seriously, just 2 for the entire faction. The one-handed Dawnguard War Axe, and the two-handed Dawnguard War Hammer. You would think a major organization like this one, with its own bloody castle and armory, would offer its members a bit more to work with. Enter Dawnguard Arsenal, a NASDAQ 22-1. Dawnguard Arsenal introduces 5 new melee weapons for the faction to use, each made from scratch, with custom models and textures, allowing Dawnguard players to finally get a chance to interact with swords, greatswords, daggers, battle axes, and battle hammers. This essentially gives the Dawnguard a variant of every single type of melee weapon, minus maces. But it goes a bit further. Dawnguard weapons now deal a whopping plus 20 points of damage against undead targets, and deal extra bleeding and staggering against vampiric foes in particular. The new items can be obtained either by just looting them from around Fort Dawnguard, or the inventory of Dawnguard warriors, as they're now added into the faction's equipment pool in general. Alternatively, you can just
800 career games. Holy
special
shit.
elite versions of each item with increased stats can also be made at the special forge inside of the castle, but nowhere else. Oh, and we're still not done, because on top of all of these new items, the author also decided to create 4 new custom spells, all centered around sun magic, including Sun Ray, rays of light you can pick from your hands to burn undead. Meridian Root, a mind-like spell that will set undead targets ablaze. Holy Ground, which acts kind of like Flame Wall, but instead it's used against the undead. And finally, Gaze of Arcane, a 2-handed spell that blasts undead with 14 points of damage, and does lingering burn damage for quite some time after being applied. This one is probably the most valuable. These spells have tomes now lootable from the fort, as well as Dawnguard inventories and merchants. So whether you're a warrior or a mage, the Dawnguard faction just got considerably more enjoyable. Alright, so now it's time we shift our focus from the vampire hunters to the vampires themselves. And for the Volgar clan, there's 2 mods I find myself coming back to repeatedly. We'll start with the quicker to explain of the pair. Castle Volgar Rebuilt by Artful. So, for whatever reason, despite being occupied by the same vampiric clan for literal thousands of years, much of Castle Volgar is dirty, or just in total ruin altogether. And it seems that none of these inhabitants have ever bothered to get clean or make repairs. Who knows why? Maybe they're just bad at it, or everyone here is really lazy. Well, now once Lord Harkin's been defeated at the docks, can now easily be spivvied up by simply approaching the appropriate pile of rubble and opting to clean it out. Notably, the North Tower will now provide the Dovahkiin with a brand new player home, and Serana can be instructed to move into the castle if you so please, and she hasn't already. If the player chose the Volgar ending, all the area's inhabitants will continue to behave as they normally do. However, if you opted for the Dawn Guard ending, which, spoiler alert, results in you killing all of the vampires here, then as you clean up the castle, Dawn Guard warriors will actually move in and begin manning the various stations, almost making it feel like the Dawn Guard are taking over the area and expanding their influence. Honestly, it's amazing to me something like this wasn't included in the base game itself. The improvements seem so simple to implement, but the actual results of the experience are radical and bring a sense of reward to the conclusion of the DLC's main narrative. So, suffice it to say, Castle Volgar Rebuilt easily earned my endorsement all those years ago, and still does to this day.
Game overs aren't all bad. They're the perfect time to enjoy an Oreo.
For the best legal cannabis, Reaper, Mary Jane, look no further.
But with their humble abode out of the way, how about some changes to the vampire experience itself? In Skyrim, even with Dawn Guard installed, the vampire lifestyle can feel a bit disappointing at times. It's one riddled with debuffs, annoying encounters, and little advantages beyond becoming a vampire lord, which is admittedly quite cool. Well, Sacrosanct, Vampires of Skyrim, is a massive mod by Naseon that overhauls the entire undead experience to be far more entertaining, immersive, and complex. The mod starts by doing what the author calls reversing progression. Normally in Skyrim, as a vampire, we feed in an effort to prevent our vampirism from progressing to a later stage, as higher stage vampires suffer considerably more debuffs, with very little improvements. With Sacrosanct, now the opposite is true. Now ranking up and advancing through stages is actually a good thing, as doing so will grant you an assortment of new perks. And
Oh wow, he's straight bastard, bro.
And the way you rank up is now through feeding. Essentially, you're no longer biting people's necks in a desperate attempt to avoid getting weaker, but you're doing it so you can get stronger, and unlock custom abilities and spells. Hemomancy, or blood magic, is the mod's new arcane school, and there's around 8 totally custom blood-based spells, many including unique visuals and effects that can be unlocked as you progress through the 6 stages of vampirism. Do keep in mind that just opting not to feed is still a horrible idea, as it will result in all sorts of negative effects befalling the undead don't begin. And going too long without a meal will eventually result in everyone straight up attacking you on sight, and your health not regenerating. So you always want to be looking for your next victim. Finally, at least for the purposes of this video, Sacrosanct also rewards you especially well for feeding on Skyrim's most powerful characters. Munching on Jarls, faction leaders, or important story characters can result in you obtaining totally special blue blood abilities that come with some insane advantages. For instance, as a reward for fighting around 12 of these important people, you get Mithersaria, a new active effect that causes the day to get 20% shorter and the night gets 30% longer. There's also a Daywalker, the final blue blood perk that makes you immune to non-lethal sunlight. A huge advantage for vampires, as you might imagine. There's a lot more this mod does, and it honestly deserves its own video or two. We're barely scratching the surface right now. It turns the vampire lord system upside down on its head, has a number of new potions, gives each race special vampiric abilities, etc., etc. I highly encourage you to check out the mod page for a more comprehensive description of its changes. Suffice to say, Sacrosanct is absolutely my favorite go-to vampirism mod, and it creates a system that I feel is far superior to vanilla in just about every way. Okay, so now that we've got the faction-specific mods covered, I'm going to show you a few more general ones, meant to change not necessarily either the Dawn Guard or the Volgar, but instead that enhance the world itself and make the conflict feel more pronounced throughout Skyrim. Kicking off this section, we'll start with Immersive Patrols by Scrabular. Immersive Patrols, or IP, is really one of those near-essential mods that I recommend anyone download as soon as they get Skyrim. The improvements it makes are easy to appreciate regardless of their quest, and they can vary greatly in their composition. Some patrols will just be a couple of warriors walking together towards the settlement. Others will contain 4 to 5 heavy foot soldiers, plus a dog actively hunting out vampires that need a killer. Or, I guess, a re-killer. Sometimes these forces will bump into various vampires throughout their journey, and brief skirmishes or battles will ensue. The real effect of this mod is that it helps make the conflict feel just that much more pronounced throughout the world. Seeing Dawn Guard members appear like this organically throughout the world helps remind us of what's really going on behind the scenes.
Discover the secret to affordable premium smokes? Tired of spending an arm and a leg for government tax cigarettes? At Select Smokes, we've got your back. Get your favorite premium brands for as low as...
Next up, in a similar vein, I would also recommend a small mod called Dawn Guard Century Plus by RMS 827. This mod adds in 2 to 5 Dawn Guard members to every single hold capital, as well as some settlements that will help guard the place and protect it from the undead. The new Dawn Guard members will generally be concentrated around city gates, as well as in a Jarl's respective palace, defending the leader of whatever province they're in. Each of the new characters is totally handcrafted, with a custom appearance, inventory, and skills. Their presence feels like a natural extension of what you would expect the Dawn Guard to be doing. What with vampires running amok, and them being Skyrim's chief defenders against them, you would think they would station a few members inside of settlements and cities to help keep the people safe. And now, they actually do. Thanks to their heavy concentration around city gates, when vampires do attack cities, generally speaking, these Dawn Guard soldiers will also be the first to respond. So there's very much some practical applications to their presence as well. All these characters are unkillable by anyone other than the Dragonborn. However, if you want to make the game feel a little bit more fair, you can reconfigure that in the MCN. Speaking of vampire attacks, this is where I highly recommend you download Hells of Skyrim and run for your lives. What these mods do is somewhat self-explanatory. Generally, when vampires attack a city, pretty much every character in it and their brother will rush to its defense and try and confront the undead menace. Even characters that have absolutely no business trying to kill vampires. Isolda, I love you, but all you have is an iron dagger and your skills aren't that great. You really don't belong here. Run for your lives is simply going to make these characters run into their homes and lock the doors whenever vampires attack a city, rather than try and beat them on the field of battle. Characters with good combat skills or high confidence, such as guards, mercenaries, or just a few real strong fellows, will still join in the fray. However, everyone else will be sure to get out of their way. On the other hand, Bells of Skyrim places large bells in every major settlement. And when there's a vampire attack, or really any significant violent action inside of the city, that bell will begin ringing. Aside from being just really atmospheric, hearing the bell causes NPCs to flee to their homes too. So any characters that aren't aware of an initial vampire attack will quickly understand what's happening when these mods are used in tandem with one another. I feel as though had Bethesda implemented systems like this to begin with, vampire attacks would have been a much more immersive experience. I can't tell you how many times vampires have attacked cities I'm actually inside of, and I just didn't notice what was going on until I approached the city gate, only to find like 12 bodies just lying there. Now, when the undead do attack a city, you'll know immediately, as bells sound everywhere and NPCs begin desperately fleeing into their homes. It's a more chaotic and reasonable experience. But with that final note of turbulence, we are going to wrap up. A collection of mods to radically improve your Skyrim Dawn Guard experience and transform it into something far greater than what we got back in 2012. Not like it wasn't... Skyrim's release nearly 8 years ago, the game was already among the biggest of its time. But thanks to a number of DLCs and expansions that have become available over the following months and years, the Elder Scrolls V somehow got even larger. The first of Skyrim's major DLCs was called Dawnguard, and it centered around a clan of vampires' efforts to permanently blot out the sun, and a faction of vampire hunters who sought to stop them. Ultimately, the Dragon One would get to pick a side and determine whether men or undead would prevail. However, not unlike Skyrim itself, Dawnguard came loaded with a plethora of hidden away tiny details and Easter eggs for the most curious and dedicated Dothraki to discover, many of which may still remain unknown to some players, even all this time later. So today we'll be taking a look at 5 more hidden Dawnguard DLC secrets you may have missed in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Starting off, if the player decides to go against the vampires and join up with the Dawnguard, early in their questline, Isran, the faction's leader, will send the player to locate a pregnant woman named Sylvie Gerard, who's living on her own in the Reach. Apparently, she's an expert on weather technology and has quite the mind. Isran and her used to do business, but separated on 4 terms. You're tasked with locating her and convincing Celine to come back to the Dawnguard, which you'll succeed in doing. And for the remainder of the game, she'll stay at your headquarters. But that surname, Gerard, may sound a bit familiar. That's because we've actually encountered it in a previous Elder Scrolls game. Back in Oblivion, we would get to know a Breton battle mage named Ariel Gerard as a part of the Mages Guild. She wasn't an incredibly significant NPC, but oddly enough, in the Elder Scrolls 4's final DLC add-on, or mini-DLC, Fire Stronghold, which was really just a player home, there would be a hostile spirit inside, also called Ariel Gerard. I guess the two people just share the exact same name. According to notes, before she died, the ghost was a follower of Nana Margo, an extremely powerful necromancer, and was a feared mage in her own right. She was serving a local lord who wanted to take power in a coup. Long story short, it didn't work out very well, and the two ended up trapped in the castle, where they were both left to starve. But Ariel's spirit lived on. So this Sylvine fellow we get to know in Skyrim has quite the fascinating family history. Next on our list, one of the most expansive new environments the Dawnguard DLC sends us to is the Soul Cairn. The point of Oblivion, where the souls of those folks who have been unfortunate enough to have found themselves soul-trapped will be doomed to spend all of eternity. Here we can meet a number of unlucky spirits. But notably, one of these trapped souls will belong to that of a dark elf named Jib. Jib, when spoken to, will reveal that he was a hero back when the man still walked the earth, or Nerd. Apparently, Jib was responsible for driving a species of particularly annoying flying creatures from Morrowind, called Cliff Racers, to extinction. If you've played the Elder Scrolls 3, chances are you've dealt with those winged beasts quite a bit. But evidently since then, this Jib guy took care of them. He claims that this feat earned the love and respect of everyone back in Morrowind, and he was declared a saint even. Afterwards, our fearless friend moved to the city of Kavach in Cyrodiil, where he planned to write a biography about himself. Sadly, however, shortly after his move, the city of Kavach was attacked by Daedra and Drabora, and Jib must have been soul-trapped in the ensuing battle. He doesn't know for sure what happened, but it seems obvious the man fell victim to the Oblivion crisis, which the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion revolves around. Jib will ask that the player help him find various pages of his book that he's still persistently working on in the Soul Cairn, as they got lost when he entered. This begins the quest, Impatience of a Saint. Now this ghostly Dunmer is certainly an interesting character, but the neat thing is that we've actually met him before. Jib, believe it or not, was quite literally the first character we would see in the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. The game began with the Nerethine on a prison ship, and next to you was Jib, a fellow prisoner, who would ask your name, prompting you to begin what would become your character. We didn't see him again, but apparently Jib must have turned his life around afterward. Furthermore, in the Elder Scrolls 4, Inside a home, the player could find the head of a dark elf, bearing some striking resemblances to Chip's own, suggesting this fellow has appeared in every Elder Scrolls game since Morrowind. It's pretty cool. Coming at number 3, if you side with the Dawnguard faction over the Volkihar vampires, over the course of their questline, you'll gain access to a number of otherwise not beatable merchants within the guild. One of those being Serene Gerard, who may sell the Dragonborn a variety of especially unique items. Some of these include particularly useful spell tomes and ammunition that you'll completely miss out on if you don't decide to go with the Vampire Hunters. Or, at least, you would think that. You see, if the player did end up joining with the vampires, eventually towards the end of their storyline, you and a handful of them actually be able to barter with all those merchants you weren't supposed to have access to as a vampire. This way, the Dothan may obtain all those spells, ammunition types, and even an armored troll, all the while being on bad terms with the Dawnguard. In fairness, I'm not confident Bethesda allowed this to happen on purpose, as the reverse isn't possible.
Look at this! Team Smooth cuts it close. He definitely chooses Gillette Labs for effortless shaving in one.
If you do become a Dawnguard member, when you guys storm the Vampire Castle, Harmony and Calm spells won't be enough to get the Bloodsuckers to start trading with you. So I'm not really sure what to think. For Bloodspawn, we set our sights back on the Soul Cairn again. Here upon first entering the place, an unnamed spirit may approach you. The ghostly man will state that he was trapped here with his horse, Arvac, some time ago, after the pair were ambushed and murdered. Since their arrival, Arvac has been running in a panic around the realm non-stop, and the poor spirit can't seem to calm him down. He begs for your help before disappearing. At this point, you'll be given the miscellaneous quest objective to, quote, find Arvac's soul. But you're not really given a quest marker. You just sort of have to look for it. As you're exploring, every now and again it's possible to spot Arvac running wildly. But catching up to him is rather difficult, and frankly it doesn't do anything. Instead, the horse's skull can be located in an odd mound on the northeastern edge of the realm. Pick it up, defeat the foes nearby, and that ghostly man will appear again. This time to thank you. Apparently your actions have freed Arvac, and it'll teach you a special spell that allows the caster to summon Arvac as a mount at pretty much any point in the game, essentially affording you a force on demand, no matter where you're at. This spell also works in normal Tamriel too. Well, Skyrim's Arvac indeed seems to actually be based off of a horse from Norse mythology, wherein Arvac was, or maybe is, I don't know, maybe still pray to these gods, the name of one of the two horses that pulled the chariot that the sun rode in, with the other being called Alspion. The two were even sometimes depicted as skeletons. Perhaps they burned their flesh or something. Additionally, on an unrelated note, Arvac can also be summoned within the dwarven ruins of Blackreach to be a pretty efficient mechanism of transportation. Again, this tidbit is pretty unrelated, but hey, the more you know. And finally, last on the list, while the core of the Dawnguard expansion's experience revolved around man versus undead, they've also introduced a new side quest called Lost to the Ages, entirely unrelated to the whole debacle, that instead focused on Dwemer ruins. The mission would begin when the Dragonborn entered the dwarven ruins of Arctic Banks in the Reach, which was also a newly added location. Inside, shortly upon your arrival, the way you entered would cave in on the player, and you'd be approached by a ghostly woman named Katria. She will explain that this place is extremely dangerous, and you should have just turned back when you had the chance. Apparently back when she was, well, not dead, Katria was a researcher studying the Dwemer. She created an elaborate theory about their relationship to a resource called Ethereum. Her proposition was game-changing. But before she could publish it, an apprentice of hers stole her work and took the credit for himself. More betrayed Patria then set off to explore dwarven ruins in hopes of finding evidence that would confirm her theory, and perhaps prove her work was stolen. Alas, she just didn't get very far, and passed away after a fall inside this ruin in particular. The spirit will request your help by locating a series of Ethereum shards spread across multiple Dwemer dungeons, including this one. The ghost promises to stand alongside you, and thus the quest begins in earnest, as you and Katria's ghostly phantom fight your way through a myriad of various dwarven locations, and ultimately do indeed prove her theories when you locate a to go to rest and completes the class. While Katria's entire character seems to be inspired by and based on a similar student that we would meet in the first Elder Scrolls game. In the Elder Scrolls arena, the Eternal Champion, i.e. the player, would be led by the ghost of a woman named Rhea Solmain that directed you to recover shards not of Ethereum, but of an item called the Staff of Chaos. Once the Staff of Chaos' shards had been recovered, then Rhea Solmain, much like Katria, would finally let herself go to rest. At least it seems Katria was based on Rhea. Either that or this is just bad overlapping writing. You be the judge. But with that, we are going to wrap up. 5 more Dawnguard DLC secrets you may have missed in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim.
Oh wow, 34 points in 70 games, basically over a point per game player. Shit, damn. Yep, point per game, cool. His career high was 57, I think. Yeah, 57 points was his career high, and if he could beat that this year, oof. Oh, fuck, that's not good. Uh-oh. Oh, Christ. Bruder's hurt too. Fuck. Oh, fuck off, come on. And of course, we played against Edmonton. Great. Almost had a very good year as well. Definitely giving. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Ooh. He lost a lot of fucking money. Fuck you. Wow. $40 shit. Damn, okay. He has 500 career points, so. Yeah, he's probably going to be here for a while, so he's probably going to be one of my options in the future. And I'm going to probably make Jake the captain. He had a fucking great good year. We're full of no move cross, so I cannot trade him. He's like one of my top guys on the blue line. Sanheim, how do you do? 31 points, same thing as last year, but he had more goals. Oh, he played not bad. I stepped up as well, so Phil Roberg. He was like almost average year point per game. .909 save percentage and 2.77 goals against. Oof. Not the best, but he was still really good. He almost has 50 wins though. But UPL, he did not fare much better, but who is number one guy? Yep. Whoa. Oh my god, what? Oh shit, I might actually snag him. Damn. Oh wow, Leo Carlson dropping. Wow, he dropped hard. Oh, you even need Goldie here. I might actually try to snag him too. think I could play him on second pairing. $6 years? Ooh, really? Why not? You play well. I may have to trade out Johansson, maybe, probably.